Okay, quick tutorial on saving leader stats. We've got to make sure the game's published first. So first thing we'll do is go to publish Roblox, give it a name. Let's call it uh, saving tutorial. There we go. Oh, that's terrible spelling. Doesn't matter about these other bits. You can have them however you need, so long as it's published. That's the important thing here. And then in the Home tab on the ribbon, find Game Settings here, and you can go to Security and enable studio access to API services. This is the bit that you need in order to get to the data stores stuff through the network calls. So you need to make sure that's enabled, otherwise it won't work. It won't work in Studio. It should work in the actual game, but you want to be able to test that things are working, so we can turn that on. Save that. Brilliant. Now that's done, let's give ourselves a script. Name that whatever it is you're going to be naming it. We're going to want the player service, so let's get the player service. We can call it players, game, get service, players. We also want the data store service, so I'm just going to call that DSS. So E's there, game, get service, data store service. And then we need to define an actual data store, so we'll call that data store. You can name it whatever you like. That's going to be DSS, and then get data store. Just want a normal data store for this one. Get all the data store is good for doing like your leaderboards and stuff. Right now we just need a normal data store. And I generally call it something like test 01 to start off with until I'm ready to publish the game. Because you'll probably reset this a few times. So that's why I like to name it something like test with an 01. And then we're going to need to use the player service for when the player joins. So uh, players dot player added, and then we're going to connect. We'll just do it as an anonymous function. We'll just do it in line like this, and in here we're going to have the first parameter is going to be the player. I'm abbreviating to PLR, but call it player or whatever it is that's easiest for you. And then in here we're going to want to make the leader stats. So let's say we call leader stats be equal to instance.new. Oh, wrong button. Instance.new, and this is going to be a folder. You probably know this bit already, but just in case, leader stats dot name must be leader stats with lowercase. It's going to be spelled exactly like that because it's part of the Roblox special stuff. And we're going to drop down a line as well, and we're going to set the, because we want to set the parent of this last. We don't want to set the parent of it first, and that's going to be put in the player like that. Okay, drop that down a bit more so we know it's going at the end, and then we're going to add a value to it. So let's say coins, local. Let's do coins and rebirths. I don't know, something like that. That's a common thing, isn't it? Okay, so coins equals it's going to be an instance dot new. That's going to be n. Let's go with an int value. Oops, got to put the bracket there. Quotes now. Int value, and then so coins dot. We could set the value here for a default value, but 0 will be fine. I think that's the default is 0. So I'm going to parent that to the leader stats, and let's do another one called rebirths, and we're going to do the same thing. So it's an instance.new, and that will also be an int value. Oops, I didn't put my equals in there. That's why we're getting all those red lines. And that's going to be the same. So rebirths dot parent. It's always better to to do it separately. Don't do it in the same. Don't add the parent in the instance.new function. It's less efficient. It's just good practice to just always parent it as a separate thing. And then if I do decide to set a value in here, we can just put it in here. Parent equals leader stats as well. Okay. Right. So now we got two things in our leader stats, and they're set, and then it's gonna parent them as the last bit. Okay. We can do it in here. Let's just actually. So and we're gonna say while the player exists, do this. So this loop is gonna keep going all the time. The player is connected to the game. Don't just do while true, otherwise it doesn't save. It doesn't load the game, and they leave the game. It's going to keep trying to load. So we don't want to do that. We want to only try and load while they're in the game. And then we also want to make sure that it's not just going to run the whole time. So task.wait. I do like to use a task.wait on this one. Not so fussed about it being normally so precise, but there is a limit on how many save and load requests you can make per player that's in the game. And the frequency with which you can write or read from the same key is 6 seconds. So we're going to make that 6. And that'll also mean that you won't run out of save and load requests for your server, because it's every 6 seconds will be fine. Right. Now, what do we need to do next? We need to make a p call to do the get async. So let's make a local, and then we're going to do two variables, success and result. That's the normal way people do it, but you can call them whatever you like. We're going to equal pcall like that with a bracket. So pcall is a function, and in that we're going to hand it a function, another anonymous function like this. So what's going to happen here is the code inside this block is going to run, and if it's successful, it will return success true, and if you return something out of this, that'll be put into the result. If it's a fail, if it errors, success will be false, and the result will be whatever the error message is. But the point is, the whole script won't fall over. That you'll just continue, but knowing that it had that error, and you can handle it how you like. This just gives you a really good way of handling things that might error. And if you're doing stuff over the internet, things can go wrong. Data can be corrupted, their servers could be down, all sorts of things. So we need to make sure that we're wrapping it in a pcall so that the whole thing doesn't just fall over just because there's some dodgy internet. Okay, so what we're doing in here is we're going to actually return, just going to do it all in one thing, return, and we want the data store, and then we're going to use our get async, just like that. We want to use the players, I'm going to just use the player's user ID as their um, key. You can add something more string to that, like user or player or something like that. But I don't generally. But I'm normally just gonna put it as their user ID. Saves on any extra trouble down the line. And we just need that one field because it's just getting it. So that's it. So now that we've got that, when it runs through, if it's managed to load the data, success will be true. So we're going to test for that. So if success, then we're going to check whether there was a result. Because if it's the first time the players come to the game, this will have worked, but what it will return is nil because they haven't got any saved data. But it would be successful still. So if success, then I'm going to say if result, then we're into another one. And so if it's got a result, we're going to set it as the we could what's the easiest way to do it? We'll just do it straight up in here. There we go. So coins dot value is equal to result 1, because we're going to be saving a table in here. So this will make a bit more sense when we save it as well. So coins and then rebirths dot value will equal to result 2. So it would be the first value and the second value in the table that we save. Then we need something to do if it's not, else If it's not, then we're going to give it the default data. Actually, no, we don't need to do that because we're just doing leader stats. So there we go. We can just do that. We also then want to break out of this. Yeah, okay, and then we're going to break. That'll break from this loop. That'll break from the loop that we're in. So break from this and continue to here. Oh no, we want to stick. Here we go. Actually, we want an else in here. We'll move the wait into that. Otherwise, we'll be waiting. Even if we've saved it, we'll wait another 6 seconds. We don't want to do that. We only want to wait the 6 seconds if it didn't successfully load, and then it would try and load again. What I would do is I would normally have an event in here if you're going to have something like a loading screen, a screen that says you before you get into the game, that kind of thing. This would be where you'd put it in here. Signal player has loaded, but that's going to be dependent on how complex your system is for the rest of your game. Generally speaking, this should be fine. It just mean that if they jump straight into the game and they got some coins or whatever, and then the game loaded, they'd lose those coins they just got in that time. Generally speaking, I can't see it being much more than failing once or twice. If it fails more times than that, then something's gone really wrong. Let's go on to saving then. So that will load the game, but we have to have something to be able to save in there. So let's do it when they leave. I thought player removing. Same similar kind of thing here. And in here we're going to do a similar one, but we're not going to just do a while player loop because they'll have left, so we need it to go a set number of times. So let's pick an amount of times. We'll say 4, we'll call it attempt equals, let's say 1 to try and say for 2 minutes. It won't need more than 10, so that'll be fine. There we go. Same kind of thing. So we're going to do the local success, comma result equals pcall function, just like that. This time we don't need to return anything, we just need to know whether it successfully saved or not. So we're just going to say data store set async player user ID, and then we need to get there. Oh, hold on. I do need to put the player in here. Need to know who the player is. And this is going to be a table. We could compile it first, probably worth doing. Yeah, let's just compile it at the beginning here. Local save data equals, and then we'll make a table. We can say the first one will be the player dot leader stats dot coins. Did I name? Oh, I didn't name these. Ha, hilarious. Okay. Coins dot name. We need to name rebirths as well. Coins dot value, comma, and then player dot leader stats dot rebirth dot value. Yeah. Yep, that's perfect. Yeah, that's just what we need. The coins and the rebirths in a table. And then we're going to put that in the save data. Good to do it this way because you want to get those values before the player leaves. It needs to be done ASAP, like immediately. We're going to keep that outside of the loop here. Perfect. Because obviously if we try to just get it in here when the player's left, it's going to come through the next loop say it fails on that first one, it's going to come through the next loop, and the player's not going to exist, and so it'll fall over. We're going to do the same thing and check whether it was successful. So if success, then we can just return. We don't need to continue. This function can be finished. Anything else? And else, we're going to do the same thing with task.wait 6 seconds. Now that should all be hunky-dory. Right, next thing to think about is the fact that we don't want to save the game if they haven't loaded the game. So I quite like to use attributes for this, but there's different ways you could do it. Attributes is definitely the way I would recommend. So if it's successful, then we're going to set an attribute on the player. So we'll say set attribute loaded, and that's going to be just true. So basically just putting we're going to use an attribute a bit like a tag, and then we're going to also do the same thing in here. We're just going to encapsulate, close all of this in an if statement. So if player get attribute loaded, then, and we want another end at the end, and then format the whole thing again for ease there. That's better. Okay, so now if the player hasn't loaded and they leave the game before they finish loading, it won't try and save them. It'll only try and save them if they have actually loaded their data in the first place. Because you don't want someone to join the game and leave before it loaded, and then they lose everything that they've done for, let's say, years. Okay, that's cool. One other little thing people like to do is to actually separate this. So if we give it its own function, local function, save player, player like that. Instead of having this function being here and anonymous, we're going to take all of that, Control X, and paste it into there. Yeah. And instead of this being an anonymous function, we're going to assign this save player function to run when they leave, like so. There we go. And then we can have another thing here, game bind to close. So this will run when the server closes, and this will mean that if the server crashes, hopefully, or is shut down by Roblox or by yourself, then we can do the same thing. We're going to bind to close a function. This is getting into a bit more advanced stuff now. We're going to use some code. We're going to use a coroutine as well. Loop through all the players. So for underscore, because we don't need to know what the index is, and we're going to say player in iPairs, and then we're going to get all the players in the game. So players, get players. Oops, keep hitting the wrong button. Okay, get players, and then in here we need to do a coroutine wrap. So coroutine dot wrap, and then in here we're going to put a function. Oh, actually no, we can just what am I doing? We can just wrap this function straight in it. Save player here, like that, and then we actually need to call the coroutine wrap as well, and we're passing it the player like that. Brilliant. And so now it will loop through all the players in the game still that hadn't removed yet, and we'll save them. This might throw some errors in Studio because the way that the game ends in Studio is slightly different to the way it ends on a real server. But and some people make it so that this only runs if it's in Studio, obviously if it's in the game proper, not if it's in Studio. But I think we can test this and see whether it works. Okay. Okay, so now we're in here. No, it hasn't worked because I've not got the leader stats. Okay, I found the issue. I needed to parent the leader stats before I went into the load loop. I think I forgot this because I normally separate these out into their own functions, normally doing a more complicated saving system. But I thought I could just run this all in line. No, that's cool. So we can get rid of these test prints. Now if we play, okay, game's loaded. We've got these in there. We just want to make sure that we're saving. So I'm going to switch to the server and change the leader stats on him. Let's give him 1,000 coins and I don't know 12 rebirths. There we go. And then if we stop, it should save him. And then if we play again, there we go. We've got 1,000 coins and 12 rebirths. Cool. I hope that's of some help. Um, do ask any questions if you have any. I hope I'll speak to you all soon.